Buenas tardes. En nombre del Banco Interamericano de Desarrollo, les damos la bienvenida a la ceremonia de los premios de Diversidad, Equidad e Inclusión de 2022. Les cedo la palabra a nuestra presidenta interina del BID y de nuestro grupo asesor de Diversidad, Equidad e Inclusión, Reina Irene Mejía, quien dará las palabras de apertura.
Hola y bienvenidos y bienvenidas a todos a esta nueva ceremonia de los premios de Diversidad, Equidad e Inclusión 2022. Increíble cómo pasa el tiempo. Hace un año, lo mencionaba, estaba sola en un estudio y hoy estoy rodeada de todas ustedes. Muchísimas gracias por estar aquí hoy. Hoy tenemos la compañía especial de 3 de nuestros directores. Me acompañan Carolina Leclerc, la directora ejecutiva por Canadá, María Fabiana Jorge, directora suplente por los Estados Unidos, Robert LeHunt,
For the United States, Robert LeHunt, Executive Director for the Bahamas, Barbados, Guyana, Jamaica, and Trinidad and Tobago, who will today be presenting these awards with me. Bienvenidos todos.
Sus esfuerzos a construir una cultura de inclusión, de equidad y promover transparencia en nuestro trabajo y en la región donde trabajamos. Han contribuido a un tema muy especial y muy cercano y querido a mi corazón. Lo dije el primer día que me dirigí a la institución. Somos un mosaico hecho de diferentes piezas y cada pieza es única para formar un hermoso mosaico diferente pero unido. Me gustaría comenzar saludando a todos los que se han conectado virtualmente el día de hoy. Ese es el segundo año que abrimos al público la entrega de los premios de diversidad, de equidad y de inclusión. Lo hemos abierto porque todos ustedes son importantes en la labor que nosotros hacemos en cada uno de nuestros países. Los y las ganadoras que estamos a punto de presentar han contribuido a nuestra agenda de diversidad, equidad e inclusión y han demostrado que la diversidad y la inclusión impulsan la innovación. Estamos orgullosos de compartir estas historias tan inspiradoras de estos agentes de cambio. Son unos agentes de cambio, una levadura en cada una de las masas que ustedes trabajan, en cada una de las funciones y trabajos que realizan. Sin más preámbulos, pasaré
Projects on the stake. Without further ado, I will now present our winners. I am honored to introduce our first winner. This is someone who has led initiatives to foster diversity and inclusions in groups that are underrepresented in labor markets through the use of technology. Through their efforts, they have made a difference in the lives of many in different countries, including Bolivia, the Dominican Republic, Paraguay, and Suriname, among others. Let's hear their story.
Cuando llegué muy emocionada. Latin America and the Caribbean represent one of the most
Hablar de diversidad, equidad e inclusión
Speaking of diversity, equity, and inclusion is a challenge.
Mi trabajo se centra en ayudar a la gente a encontrar
My job
empleo.
focuses on helping people find jobs and better jobs. And among the people who most require quality jobs are precisely women, indigenous people, Afro-descendants, people with disabilities, and LGBTQ plus individuals, all the groups representing different dimensions of diversity that we need to make visible. Personally, I found a few paths to do this. I have promoted accessibility in systems, special employment subsidies, and above all things, what I have achieved in these years has been to understand the world a little more. Diversity, equity, and inclusion have helped me obtain evidence that the incorporation of women into the labor market has been one of the engines of growth in our region, and showing how incorporating groups that we are leaving behind will allow us to continue growing. This has helped me understand that we can make a world that is more accessible and inclusive if we do so in stages. I work with the digital transformation at the Ministries of Labor, and we have discovered that if we think about it in stages with a clear plan to work by improving every system, making each one of them accessible when an update is due, it is easier and more efficient. And it allows officials to understand the importance of this and of them driving this process, empowering ministry officials for them to be the ones who push and, in many cases, design and implement these changes, while understanding at the same time the needs of people with disabilities. Diversity, equity, and inclusion have allowed me to come closer to LGBTQ plus individuals as well as people of indigenous or Afro-descendant background, in addition to helping me understand that each group has its own challenges and that it is unfair to expect common solutions and agreements for all of them. Understanding that they lose their visibility when, for example, LGBTQ plus people are seen as a whole shouldn't be the case. There are gays, lesbians, trans people, and each group has its own problems. Each indigenous people is different, and the answers need to be designed in terms of their individual problems. Diversity, equity, and inclusion have helped me understand that in order to ensure that excluded groups have access to better employment opportunities, we have to work with them because it is them, each group and each community, that will understand what the solution to the problems is. And they're the ones that can teach us how to respond to them. My name is Manuel Urquidi, and I'm the 2022 DEI Awards champion of our country offices.
Bienvenido, Manuel.
Welcome, Manuel.
Les presento a Manuel Urquide, quien ha viajado.
Let me introduce Manuel Urquidi, who has
Gracias, Manuel, y bienvenido.
traveled. Thank you, Manuel, and welcome. I was saying, let me introduce Manuel Urquidi, who has traveled from Bolivia to join us for the award ceremony. Thank you, Manuel. We are proud to have you here, and we would like to hear a bit more about your initiatives. And if you will allow me, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. Very well, Manuel. Through the story shared, you said that it was very important to consider that the impact of diversity, equity, and inclusion is much more powerful when we work in stages. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Thank you, Reina. You tend to see this as a matter of urgency. So you try to make projects which are often just band-aids. And we're trying to fix this system in order for it to be accessible and for people who can't see to be able to use it, or perhaps we're running a pilot or making a small change. But actually, if what we want is to make big changes, in my experience, we need to ensure that they themselves have a plan as to how to mainstream this step by step into the work. In other words, a plan so that every future system will mainstream accessibility. in order for this process to be understood. In one of the countries, what we did was work with them with a firm that did shadowing. They didn't actually do the system work themselves, but the firm helped the ministry people design the systems with accessibility built in, so that when the bank pulls out, they can continue to develop systems that already have that embedded, and we can change the system a little bit. Each time it needs to be tweaked in order for each subsequent system to be accessible over time. And so the changes will live on and continue through planned stages. Excellent, Manuel. Most definitely teaching them, not just telling them what they need to do. I also feel like you that each one of us should ensure that there are equal opportunities for each one of the different areas. How can each one of us play a more active role in order to ensure that everyone will have the same opportunities in the labor market? We, employees, those watching, each one of us, not just leave it up to third parties, right? One thing I've learned has been about my own bias. We live in a world that has been designed somehow from the perspective of a straight white man with no disabilities, and everything has been put into some very nice little boxes. If you have any sensory, mental, or other issues, you're disabled. And well, there's in terms of sexual identity, there's LGBTQI plus. Well, the plus includes everything that's not straight, and if someone was already living around here when we discovered them, then they're indigenous or Afro-descendants, and we crowd them into one group as if the Sioux and the Quechua were the same thing. And of course, you need to address the labor market challenges, and the labor market challenges for a trans person have nothing to do with those of a lesbian person. Someone who can't see needs completely different policies and support to that needed by someone who can't hear or someone who can't walk. And the second bias we have is that in a very patronizing sort of way, we feel, okay, we're going to help them, we're going to do things for them, when in fact we need to do things with them. They're the ones who understand what it is they need. We can't just come along with our great knowledge of things. We need to come close to every group, work with each one of them, and shift away from this logic of, participation along the lines of, yeah, hey, I met with members of the indigenous community and we came up with a common plan. But you need to focus on each community, targeting each community. And this is something I have learned over the years. It was hard because of my own bias, and it's about the way we see the world. And I think it helps us if we work with each group and make a point of understanding each one. And if we are really by the side, we can really change the world. Thank you so much, Manuel. Everything starts with each one of us. I thank you because you have inspired us. Your achievements make us better and motivate us to be better. I think we all look forward to hearing even further and greater achievements from you. Thank you. As we all know, at the IDB, we want to be as inclusive and representative as the countries we represent and serve. Would like to thank Manuel once again for having shown us a way to participate in the region's growth together. Our second winners are a team of highly talented women who have developed a communications and operational strategy that includes training tools and materials to identify the risks associated with sexual and gender-based violence in development projects in the region. Let's learn more about this winning team. When I arrived, all full of excitement at the Environmental and Social Solutions Unit, I wondered what would be the best way to continue promoting gender equality, diversity, equity, and inclusion in a project. The response came quickly, as our new environmental and social policy framework includes a gender-specific standard that helps us identify and avoid negative impacts that could affect women and LGBTIQ+ individuals as a result of our projects. My colleague and I, as specialists in the subject, had a long way to go. We started by developing audiovisual, educational, and interactive materials to communicate these advances to colleagues and clients. That's how Esperanza was born, an imaginary town that could exist in any corner of Latin America or the Caribbean, where the IDB is financing the construction of a tunnel. And so a small interactive game was born in which, through the stories of the residents of Esperanza and project workers like Gilberto, Wendy, Gallito, Sandra, and Melanie, among other characters, we get to see how they face situations involving sexual harassment, gender inequality, and/or discrimination on grounds of sexual orientation, and see what we can do to address those things. This way, the project becomes a transformative force for equity, respect for diversity, and inclusion in Esperanza. Another source of inspiration, as well as a challenge, has been the creation of instruments to recognize, identify, and mitigate cultural practices that create inequalities, such as social inclusion plans supported by gender analysis and SOGI, an acronym that in English refers to sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, and sexual characteristics, which defines actions aimed at the well-being of the most vulnerable populations. In short, improving lives, as in having equal opportunities for men, women, and populations of sexual and gender diversities, is no easy task. It starts with ourselves and requires recognizing, identifying, and mitigating the social damage caused by cultural practices such as sexual harassment within a work environment and discrimination in access to opportunities that projects bring to address and mitigate them. So we promote an institutional culture that prides itself on fostering an environment that embraces equity, diversity, and inclusion. This spirit lives in our supervisors and colleagues, who, with great commitment, support us and trust us to drive these advances, for which we're very grateful. Hi, I'm Maria Mela Viteri, and I'm Julia Amigues. We are from the Environmental and Social Solutions, ESG unit. Together, we want to share the recognition of the work that we are doing at ESG to promote gender equality and the rights of LGBTIQ+ people. We invite you to join us on this journey to transform, inspire, and promote diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Les damos la bienvenida ahora a Julia
We
Miguel.
now welcome Julia Migues and Maria Amelia Viteri. Please.
Muchas gracias por acompañarnos, por estar
Thank you
aquí.
very much for joining us and for being here, and especially for the work you've done and for teaching us the way to be more inclusive.
Les agradeceríamos que nos contaran más de su
We'd like to hear more about your project and about the impact related to gender and how these issues can disproportionately affect women and may actually engender violence, both sexual as well as other, because it can also be different kinds of violence. Tell us more about your project, please, and about what you've learned through this process. Thank you, Adriana. Okay, the main learning has been that in order to avoid gender-based violence in projects, we need to acknowledge that this is a risk that is present in all of our projects. This is a case because violence against women, young girls, and people with different sexual and gender expressions is something that we find in all countries and contexts in which these projects unfold. The fact is that gender-based violence has become so much the norm that we often find it hard to identify it as a form of violence. And sexual harassment, we sometimes refer to as a joke, or unwanted sexual advances are, dismissed as a mere misunderstanding. So what is key here in order to make this issue visible is training and raising awareness among all those involved in the project, the IDB team, the executing agency, contractor firms and communities. And in order to provide support as part of these efforts, the Environmental and Social Solutions Unit at the bank has developed materials. Some of them have been shown, blogs, short videos presenting fictitious violent situations in a project. And there's also the online format through this game that takes place in the imaginary town of Esperanza. It should also be ensured that all projects have a code of conduct that will prohibit any form of gender-based violence among project participants, including, LGBTQI+. And of course, even in the presence of all these prevention mechanisms, there might be a case involving violence. So the project must deal with the complaints reported in a confidential way, avoiding a re-victimization, working to ethical standards, and putting the safety of the complaining individual first. So that, by and large, is the main set of measures that will obviously have to be tailored to each project and context. Thank you very much. And as you rightly said, this should be included in each and every project and should be a process to gradually raise awareness, but on an ongoing basis. How is intersectionality present in these tools, and how has that influenced your role as women in developing all of this project? Well, thank you very much, Director Fabian. It's a pleasure to be here with Reina, Director Caroline, Robert, all of you. So when we think about intersectionality, we think about a number of layers, and these layers are juxtaposed based on, say, different identities. And when these different layers are juxtaposed, they exacerbate inequalities and even prevent forms of well-being. It's not the same to be a woman in the Amazonian region of Ecuador, where I had a chance to work, or to be a woman who is also lesbian in an urban context in the Southern Cone, for instance. So depending on these layers that are related to my ethnicity, sexual identity, or gender identity and sexual orientation, including to other variables, with gender being a prominent one, we see how the inequality layers and the gap grows and becomes exacerbated. So we want to take into account in our projects, and in fact, the videos we showed you reflect this. And if you haven't seen the videos, we'd like to invite you to watch the videos involving the small town of Esperanza. This is intended to remind us of this intersectional perspective. These layers are juxtaposed and they actually compound vulnerabilities. I'm a social scientist, I'm a practitioner, and I also talk to you as a woman, sister, mother, survivor, something that in anthropology we call a situated form of knowledge. And this situated knowledge and this perspective we have developed with Julia helped us think about our own experiences, which are, of course, a lot more privileged than the experience of the population groups we work with. All of that helps us ensure that we make a point of the fact that change begins with the well-being of women and young girls. I'm really excited about these topics, but when we see that women and girls enjoy well-being, they're violence-free, all of their communities benefit. So it's not just about the girls, it's about the women, it's about the communities as a whole. And this is what all studies say. Our own practice here reflects this. So I would also like to somehow leave with you this feeling. And of course, this work couldn't possibly be done alone or just within ESG. The strategic partnerships we've had have been instrumental. The support of all of you and at our division has been key. This is ongoing work. And of course, it starts by ourselves. How can I take a look at these matters, reflect on them, and how will these issues then have a cascading effect in terms of our projects and lives and in the lives of our beloved Latin America? Thank you very much. And I think it's also important to note what you have just said. Since women and girls can be free from violence, that spreads well-being into the rest of our society. Thank you very much for this very significant effort to mainstream equity, diversity, and inclusion into all of our work with projects at the bank, and also with a view to finding ways and means to reduce, prevent, and mitigate the risks of violence, whether sexual or gender-based. Thank you very much for sharing this with us and for teaching us the way.
So for our third award, it's an honor for me to introduce a champion who's made a significant impact inside and outside our organization by sharing her expertise and her professional knowledge with all of us to help us foster inclusion in our projects and our organization. So let's watch the video.
Latin America and the Caribbean represent one of the most diverse regions in the world. In Latin America alone, we know that 40% of the population is of indigenous or African descent, and about half of the population considers itself diverse. It is this diversity that is the region's greatest strength and what makes it central to our discussions on development. As development practitioners, we cannot afford to leave any group behind. There is increasing evidence that when societies extend opportunities to all, they become more resilient, more efficient, and better utilize resources in a way that is more sustainable. Diversity is good for development, but it is also good for improving the ways that we work. I love working with people with diverse perspectives. It is what makes me test my ideas and thoughts, and it is one of the keys to solving the root causes of poverty, marginalization, and exclusion. Valuing diversity can be difficult, particularly because different perspectives are not always appreciated. A commitment to diversity can require sacrifices. It is a practice and an area where we can always improve. However, through persistence, diversity has great rewards. Diversity forces us to see things in a new light and makes our work more interesting and fulfilling. As someone passionate about diversity, it is an honor to receive this recognition. I hope that these reflections will remind you of how diversity is one of the greatest assets of our region and in our professional lives.
My name is Judith Morrison, and I am the 2022 Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Champion at headquarters.
Bravo! So let's welcome Judith Morrison. Welcome, Judith. Thank you for joining us. It's really clear from the video that you do have a passion for helping us with the resources that we need to foster inclusion and to give everyone a sense of belonging. So I know that you, on top of writing publications, you also do research, you participate in training and mentoring. So would you tell us, of all of this, what do you think has the best impact to educate people?
Carolyn, thank you so much for the question, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. First of all, I think we often over-formalize the work that we're doing. I think all of those things are important and they contribute to our understanding, but I wanted to demystify a little bit the notion of mentorship. Mentorship is often the opportunity to have an aha moment when you're talking to someone or you're exchanging and you feel like you've learned something that you didn't know before, or that you've opened your eyes, or you've heard something that for you is very new or different, that can improve the quality of your projects and the quality of your work. So to give you a very quick example, it's not necessarily an intense relationship. It's giving people information when they're working on projects in certain areas. It's engaging even with the beneficiaries of our projects to understand what's important and what's useful for them. This is really what makes the difference. And I think that it's these types of exchanges, often not even formal, they could be very brief, but sharing information such as Indigenous peoples are actually more than half of them live in urban areas, not necessarily in rural areas. That there are people in the region who are both Afro and Indigenous, and that our projects may be affecting these individuals that have very unique backgrounds and have very unique development needs. So for me, I think my dream for the IDB is really that we all see ourselves as agents of diversity, that we all understand the power that we have in the work that we do to truly make a difference and to improve all lives.
Okay, wow. I really love hearing someone that has a dream for our organization and for ourselves. So thank you. And I think a theme that we're hearing, we've heard it from the other winners as well, is that you like to test your ideas with people because you're telling us they probably have the solution. They have the knowledge, they have the solution. I hear you. Tell us as well, what are the other things that are essential for us to be aware of, to be able to better promote diversity and inclusion in our organization and in the region?
Excellent. I think one of the things that we have at our disposal are our resources, both our human resources and our financial resources. And that means that when we're designing projects, that we keep in mind information that we might need to better incorporate these projects, both in the activities, but also in understanding how our programs and operations work. I think the other areas that are critical for diversity is that we find that many of these topics are relatively new. They're not well documented, and we don't have a good evidence base. I think over the years, we see that we've done a lot of training. There's a lot more effort to think about indicators and quality indicators, but particularly around diversity, I think we have to know what success is when we're starting. We have to clearly define it, we have to track it, and we have to understand at the end of the process, have we reached that goal, that indicator, what we had in mind, or have we not? And this means kind of better understanding both within the IDB and what we do, but also understanding what other partners or other stakeholders in the region may be doing, that we can learn from, that we can document, and that we can develop an evidence base for. So I would say that these are some of the things that we really have to focus when we're moving forward, is looking at that evidence base, looking at research, and looking at ways that we can really create learning products that enable us to better serve and better do our jobs as development practitioners.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Judith. I find myself truly inspired, and I think that we're lucky to have in this organization a mentor like yourself, an agent of change like yourself. So again, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Judith. I was so captivated by your statement, I even forgot that I am coming up next. The time has come for the last award in our 2022 DEI Award ceremony. And if I dare say, we have kept the best for last, if only because I am giving out this award. Our organization places a priority on building equitable spaces and providing resources that support underrepresented groups in Latin America and the Caribbean. This next theme is put into practice by creating a project that impacts the job market in the highly competitive technology industry space in Brazil. Let's learn a little bit more about them.
Hablar de diversidad, equidad e inclusión es un desafío que debe...
Talking about diversity, equity, inclusion is a challenge that reflects demographic, cultural, and historical layers in the region. Diversity is essential as a mechanism to expand opportunities for everyone. Equity is a promotion of fair treatment among people according to their needs. Inclusion ensures that people who are chronically vulnerable or have been marginalized throughout history occupy spaces and opportunities to learn, grow, propose, manage, and lead. A commitment and a responsibility we invite you to assume. We know that our mission is to improve lives. However, working with diversity, equity, and inclusion has taught us that the needs and desires of these lives need to be constantly listened to and embedded in our projects. Our project aims to train Afro-descendant and our trans women and cross-dressers and incorporate them into companies in the technology sector. This allows us to argue there are many dimensions when we talk about our beneficiaries, and that intersectionality is important to understand people's identities. We had many women from the IDB Group involved in the design and implementation of the project, which was crucial to achieve outstanding results. With Reprograma, we also learned that an effective DEI policy begins at home. Reprograma, founded and directed by women, has been incorporating Afro-descendant, trans, and cross-dressing women into leadership positions in the organization. By promoting people with profiles like these, we send a clear message about how to achieve change. Our true mission as a group is to build together a region at the service of everyone, and we'll only achieve it if we have diversity, equity, and inclusion in our teams or as the focus of our projects. Hello, I'm Luana Moraes. Hi, my name is Elena Heredero, and we are the representatives of the projects Todas en Tech implemented by Reprograma in Brazil. We are very happy to be one of the winners of the 2022 Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Awards.
It is indeed my pleasure to welcome the members of the winning team. Luana, who have traveled from Brazil, and I'll ask them to please stand, to be here with us today. And we also welcome Elena, Claudia, Padide, Gabriela, Juan, and of course, Live and Joanna, who are joining us via Zoom. Congratulations, your Todos in Tech project is truly a success. It's a project like these that reflect the opportunities that exist for the growth of Black women, trans women, and cross-dressers in the technological space. Projects like these also raises the awareness for all of us to find a way to assume an active role and lead by example with our commitment to simply improve lives. Thanks again. Please give them a round of applause. In the story you shared, I found it very interesting how you define diversity, equity, and inclusion separately. All of these concepts are key to your project. If you had to include one more concept or principle that is critical in your projects, what would it be? And how would you define it?
Thank you so much, Director Lejand. Hello, Reina, directoras, and everyone, my team. This is really an honor to be here with all of you, receiving this important award. And if I had to pick a concept or a principle, I think I would choose opportunity, because I believe that talent is distributed evenly among the population, but opportunities are not. And this is why projects and institutions like the IDB Lab and the IDB need to open new pathways so that people that have been excluded can have the chance to really develop their untapped talent, skills, and abilities. And this is what our project, Todas en Tech, has done. It has provided opportunities to Black women, to trans, to transvestites, people that are really underrepresented in the tech industry. Just to give you some numbers, in Brazil, only less than a third that women, less than a third of the tech workforce are women. And for Black, Brown, and Indigenous, it's even less. They only represent 11% of the tech industry. So, this brings me back to the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion, because it's really about providing opportunities and to allow people that are disadvantaged or have been excluded to really thrive and grow in their communities.
I think that word opportunity is really, really powerful. Reminds me of a time, somebody taught me something very early, and they said, you give a person a fish and you give them a meal. You teach somebody to fish and you give them a way of life. So it really compounds that ability of opportunity and what could happen. Thank you very much. I understand that the project, which was carried out through Reprogrammer, started as a face-to-face program, then developed to an online modality, and now continues to expand as it reaches people throughout Brazil. How would you like to see this project grow and develop to the wider region? It is so good, I would like to see it happening throughout. How would you like to see it do that?
Well, first, I will say that Reprogrammer is already growing, and especially because of the support as a group we have given to them. As you said, the boot camp, which is actually a journey that our beneficiaries, they go through, is already consolidated. We are now in the process of building an employability platform. Reprogrammer has been recognized by Holland IQ as one of the most innovative edtechs in Latin America. Google.org have selected them for the Impact Challenge for women and girls, the only organization in Brazil. And also they have been, receiving more support from other organizations like Santander Bank, Nubank, Meta, iFood, and the impact that they have is, something that I am very biased, but definitely can be spread all around Latin America. Not only the model, and here I wanted to say that more than just having the Reprogrammer implementing the program in other countries, I think we can actually cooperate with other organizations throughout Latin America and the Caribbean to say, hey, this is what we tested in Brazil. This is what we're doing in Brazil. We want to share the knowledge with you. I think the word here is sharing. And because I think the local development needs to be done by the local organization. No one knows the local context more than the local organizations. So as a Brazilian, more than ever, especially in the IDB Group, I think we are available to share what we've learned from Reprogrammer, especially with Todas en Tech. And I really invite you all to send me a message. It will be a pleasure to tell you how we're doing it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Elena, Luana, and the entire team. I hope that the project will continue to grow, and I'm very, very impressed with the results that you have been achieving. and the opportunities that you are presenting. You have really changed the lives of a number of these women, and I think it is a fantastic project and one that, as I said, I would like to see transcend throughout all of the region, Latin America and the Caribbean. Thank you and good luck in your future endeavors. Thank you very much.
Bueno, ahora que nos estamos acercando al final del programa,
Now that we're coming close to the end of the program, after hearing your stories, can say that you have moved me, and I feel extremely proud to be a part of an organization where there's such talented professionals as you, committed to making a difference for the region, to improve lives, to work on a diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda. And I would add opportunities. As was also said, it's important to have a sense of belonging. There were 60 nominations submitted, and that attest to the kind of organization we are. This is at the core of our activities. I commend you for this. We have made significant headway, and we're showing that we always must include diversity, equity, and inclusion at the heart of our operations. It should be at the core of everything we have been discussing for a number of years. Operational excellence across the board. We cannot forget our responsibility vis-a-vis the region in which we work as an organization, and the people we serve.
And I want to recognize that it's an honor to have today Caroline, Fabiana, and Robert to be here to recognize our co-workers of this important job that we do. And I believe we do have a couple of minutes. So I would like to invite you, if you want to give a statement, a note or something to our winners and to our audience on this important topic. It's important what has happened today. I'm really honored to be here. It's an honor to see this room full of people and to know that we have a lot of people connected through media. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Reina. It's an honor for me as well. And I'm really, really grateful that I was able to participate. So thank you. I actually asked to be part of this event. So thank you. And I want to congratulate again all the nominees and the awardees, and I actually want to acknowledge this crowd and the people online. It is a community, a movement for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And Judith and many of you spoke about mentorship. You are champions, you are agents of change. And I think we also have to talk about allies. Allies are very important in advancing our agenda. So I want to acknowledge as well the allies in the room and online, and encourage those of us that haven't thought yet of being an ally. Please join the movement. All you need to be an ally is have an open mind, agree to educate yourself, listen, and advocate. Use your voice and share your power. So thank you.
Gracias, Reina, y gracias a todos y también los que no ganaron.
Thank you, Reina. Thank you, everyone. Those who may not have won today, but competed, because by preparing projects, you have been winners because you've been aware and helped raise awareness about what needs to be done. I'm sure that many of the ideas that have been brought here will continue to have an impact through the project. So congratulations to everyone, whether you have received an award or not. Diversity, equity, and inclusion means taking things one step at a time. As Manuel said, we can't do everything overnight. Here at the board, well, we have representatives. There's 2 women. I am told that things were not like this before. We have 3 women on the board now. So little by little, things are improving. Let me say a few things. When the board considers projects, we often speak about the intentionality of our projects and the selectivity of the projects we decide to undertake. What the winners have taught us today, and I consider myself a student, I'm still learning, is that there has to be an intention and a decision to include all of these elements. What Silvia and Maria said, for example, finding mechanisms to identify the risks based on gender. This is not something which happens automatically, at least not yet. But once we start doing it deliberately and selectively in all projects, it will become like riding a bike. At first it's hard, but then it becomes automatic. So thank you very much for teaching us more about what needs to be done and how to continue working for this cause. Thank you.
Thank you once again, and congratulations to all the participants and all the groups who have stepped out of the box and is taking the position and put it into life. If it is going to be, it's up to me. You all are living and doing what it is that is required. You know, if I tell someone today you are going across the road and from here to there, it's just about 1 mile, and you decide to drive and make a big C to reach to that point, clearly you will understand that you are not operating optimally and you're not operating efficiently and effectively. Those of us who are tuned with climate change will say, well, you know, you're burning up so much fuel to go there, you are polluting the earth, and it's really not the most optimal way to go. We know the best way to go to be efficient and effective is a straight line. And that's a concept we all are very familiar with. We read it in our books, and we work in a bank, and we go to schools and we hear it. The truth of the matter, though, when you are operating, if you are leaving, if there's any group that you are leaving behind, when you hear the numbers that you just spoke about, or we heard today, 40% of the people that are in the Latin American, the Caribbean region of African or native descent, and 50% of the people consider themselves to be of diverse groups. You cannot have effective development with 50% of the people not being brought on board. So it simply makes common sense, right? I mean, it's just what you need to do. But we don't think about it like that but if we do not incorporate all of us, then we are not operating in an optimal manner as a region. And therefore, as we think about development, and we are part of a development institution, I think the big pillar, or the most important thing, even more important than all the money that we give and all of that, is to really ensure that we are using all of the skills of all of the people that we have in the region. And therefore, diversity is one of the things that we just need to get right. We just need to get right. And therefore, all of you all who are the champions who are leading that charge, I want to congratulate you. The word was also mentioned that, there's lots of biases that we also have within ourselves. And if it is going to be, it's up to me to get out. But as we're talking diversity, we also need to look at all of ourselves. And admittedly, we all have our own bias, and we need to work with that to make sure that you are a person ready to participate fully in the clause. So with those few words, again, congratulations. Someone told me that service to humanity is the best work of life. Congratulations all. And again, it's not too soon to say a very, very ho, 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 Merry Christmas and a bright and prosperous 2023. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias. Y en nombre del Grupo BID, me gustaría
Thank you very
también
much. And on behalf of the IDB Group, I would like to thank the organizing committee, the jury, and all of those who have worked behind the scenes to make this event a success. Thank you very much. We are diverse. We serve a region which is diverse, and together we are stronger. Thank you very much, and have a very good afternoon.